So when we lived in Alabama, I had my great big raised bed garden out front, and then I had my in-ground garden off to the side. And the in-ground garden, I had installed a drip line watering system, which, works so incredibly well. And I've been wanting to figure out a way to do that here. And so the other day, I sat down with a notepad and paper and worked out a few different ideas until I had determined exactly how I was going to do this. Now, of course, this drip line system isn't really intended for raised beds, but I'm pretty sure I can make it work. Now, I did have to purchase some more of this Mainline tubing because I didn't have enough of it, but I already had all of this that I had brought with me from Alabama, all of the actual drip tape. I have tons of the connectors and attachments, just all sorts of them. And so this is what we're going to be doing today, and hopefully I can get this all installed. Now, I am going to need something in addition to the parts that you see here, but we'll get to that in a minute. Right now I'm just going to start working on laying out all of these lines and kind of getting them all placed where I want them, and we'll see how this goes. So right here by my charger, this is the corner of the garden. Right here is where the water hose will connect using this. This is kind of a regulator. It controls the pressure. And I just pinned this to the ground so it would stay still while I was unwinding all of this. I'll just snip this little piece off when I attach this. But this is one of the main lines, and I have it going across the top edge, uphill of the garden. And then right here, I'll connect 2 drip tapes going down through here. One will water the beans, this trellis, and the other one will water right down there. I have basically a row of all sorts of things I've planted. I've got comfrey, there's flowers, and all of that. There's elderberries down there, and so this drip tape will water this whole line, and then we'll have one right here for this trellis. This won't always be beans. It'll, change up here and there, season by season. All right, and then over here, I've connected a T-junction for the main line, and this runs down along the ends of all of the beds in this row right here. And then off of this main line, I'll have 2 tapes going through this bed. I'll do 3 in the bigger beds. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then for this trellis right here, I will just have the drip tape go, a section going that way and a section going that way. And then I'll have the 3 drip tapes in that bed down there. But now the watermelon over here, this isn't always going to be here. This just kind of got planted here randomly. This is not always going to be a planting spot. So I'm not going to put drip tape here. I'll just water the watermelon by hand. Not a big deal. I don't know if it's going to do much of anything anyways. So I don't want to puncture my tubing to put in a drip tape for something that's not going to be there. And so that's where I'm at for this right now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run the line down this side of these beds. So I'll basically do the exact same thing that I just did for the other row. Run a main tube down along the end so that I can run the drip tape into the beds, all of the beds. And then right here, I'm just going to run drip tape instead of a main line, because just like at the other side of the garden, these beds are all kind of just in a row. I'm not too worried about watering the ground right there, because at some point I do plan on putting plants in these areas, and so the drip tape will just be there in advance of those. But I'll run drip tape down through all of these. It'll go through the big asparagus bed, down through the roselle bed, and on down to the asparagus. This spot right here, there's kind of like a little mound of wood chips and dirt. I'm going to level all that out, put a bed in there. I have the blueberries that I need to plant. I'm not doing it right now just because it's so hot. I'm waiting for the fall. But either right here or in that spot over there is where I'm going to be planting those. So after I get this tubing installed, and Nubsy's making himself at home in the garden over there. Now I'm not going to connect the drip tape yet, because what I'm going to do for the main tubing here is I want to support where it's going in between the beds. And this is something that I did in Alabama. We protected the tubing because it was exposed. It wasn't in a bed. This was kind of a walkway, and we didn't want the tubing getting damaged. And so what we did is we protected it by slipping PVC over the top of the tubing. And so I've got the tubing connected up there to the main line coming into the garden, but this is not yet attached anywhere. It's just kind of laid out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go I've got PVC up there in the bed of my truck. You can probably see it right there. And so I'm going to grab some tubing. I've got a permanent marker, and I'm going to measure the lengths that I'm going to need. And then I'll take them all up to the house, get my saw out, and cut them into sections. And then I can just slip them onto the tubing to protect this. Now they do make drip line or watering systems for raised beds. Living Traditions Homestead has been using that this year, and it's like these little mini sprinklers or emitters, I guess. But I already had all of this stuff. I brought all of this from Alabama with me. I just had to get a little bit more of the main tubing because I didn't quite have enough to do the entire garden. But I'm just using what I got. I've got a gazillion, adapters. I've got, probably 100, 200 feet or more of drip tape. And so I'm just kind of figuring out a way to use what I got and make it do the job without having to spend any more money. All right, so I've got my end piece right here, and I'm going to finish this off. Now they sell these little attachments that you can put on the end to do this, but this saves you $1 or $2. Now this is the main tubing. I do the drip line or the drip tape a little bit differently. I'm going to take about three, so about 6 fingers. I'm going to fold it back on itself. And then I'm going to take that piece and I'm going to fold it again. Make a little zigzag. And then I'm going to take my zip tie here. And I'm just going to pinch this together with the zip tie. Let's give this a head start. There we go. And we just pull this tight. As tight as you can get it. And that'll do it. And I'll just snip this extra piece off. And that's how I finish off the end of the main line. Alright, so I've got the main line installed. But now here's the hard part. is these little adapters. This is what the actual drip line or the drip tape attaches to. So the water comes from the main water hose, the spigot, to this, through these little attachments, and then the drip tape goes on with this. But these things are not easy to get on, and this is the hardest part of doing this drip line. So they have these little tools that you use to puncture the main line, the tubing. But then you've got to get this little piece right here into the hole that you make. And you can see that's a really big difference, and it is not easy to get these in. So I've got about 30 of these that I have to install, and I've only gotten one. So here comes the fun part. Now, when we installed our drip line in Alabama, Mr. Smith is actually the one who did this part, but he is out of town. He travels a lot right now. Oh, where did I just put my, oh, there it is. And I'm going to try and do this myself. So I found that if I squeeze the tube with a pliers or something like that, not something sharp because we don't want to puncture it. Oh, where'd it go? It keeps the piece out so I can get that in there. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Oh. Okay. Oh. 2 down, 28 more to go. All right, so I realized after I looked through my basket of stuff, I actually did have one of the little attachments that finishes off the end of the main tubing. It's these little figure 8 pieces. And basically you just put the hose through one, bend it in half, bring it back through this, and then pull it tight. And it does the exact same thing that I did with the zip tie, except with this you've only got one fold, and I'm just kind of overkill, and I did 2 folds for the zip tie. But this is the little piece, that finishes off the tubing. I'm also going to show you 2 different ways to finish off the actual drip tape. There are attachments, and I do have several of them, or there's another little shortcut, and I can show you how to do that. Alright, so first I'm going to show you how the drip tape attaches. So the little piece right here goes into the main line, and actually I figured out a trick, and I was able to get these in much easier. When I was doing the raised beds, I set the hosing up on top of the wood, the side of the bed, and when I flipped, I kind of rotated the tubing so that the hole was directly up, and when I was pushing down, I had the wood underneath it, and it actually supported it, and most of them just popped right in. So the few of them that I did where I wasn't at a raised bed, I just grabbed a scrap of 2x4 and it did the same thing. So that went way better than it would have been if I hadn't figured that out. But okay, so these are the drip tape attachments, and they actually have cutoffs where you can turn them on and off. So if you have areas that you don't need as much water, you can, turn them off and all of that. So I've got this one here attached to the main line. And so now I've got some of my drip tape here. And if you look really close at it, you have a side that's smooth and the other side has the seam. And right there you can kind of make out a tiny little slit. That is where the water comes out. It's just a slow drip. And they're about, a foot apart or something like that. 10 to 12 inches apart, each little hole. And so when I place this on, when I attach this to this piece, I like to place it so that the holes are down. It doesn't really matter. That's just my preference. So to attach these, I'm just going to take my drip tape here, and I'm going to open up the end. And I'm going to slide this piece right here, screws down, and so you basically want to screw it all the way up this way, because it's going to back screw down onto it. So make sure it's all the way up that way. Then you're going to slide this on, push it on as far as you can get it to go, and then reverse screw this back down as tight as you can get it, and then just give it a tug, and that's it. And then I'll show you how to close up the other end. Method number 1 for ending the tape is they have these little pieces, these little attachments, and you just slip this in. This is you got the narrow side and the wider side. You slip it into the narrow side, fold it over. I like to do it twice, and then you just slide this down on there, pull it snug, and that's it. It pinches it shut, and that's how you finish off the end. But I will show you another way to do it. The sun is super bright, so I came over here to the shade with a little scrap, and I'm going to show you the other way that you can finish off the end of your drip tape. You're going to cut off just a little scrap, about 1.5 inches long, inch and a half, something like that. The size doesn't really matter, just something like this. And you're going to take the end of your drip tape, you're going to fold it over, and then you're going to fold it over again, just like that. And then you're just going to take this little scrap, and you're going to open it up, and you're going to take your end, kind of fold it like a taco a little bit, and slide it into your scrap of tubing. Slide that over, and there you go. That is a practically free way to finish off the ends of all of your drip tapes. Like I said, you can get those little attachments. Now, originally I had ordered a drip line kit, and so it came with all of the pieces, but then over time I added a lot more drip line, and I didn't order more pieces. I just did this trick. So there you go. It is almost 100 degrees. You can tell my face is really flushed because it's hot. So I'm going to work on getting the rest of my drip line installed, turn on the water, and go in the house. Hi, Nubsy. Hi, Stumper. What you two up to? Yeah, buddy. Alright, y'all. It is now evening. I spent the morning out here working into the early afternoon. Got the drip line completed, but I wanted to come out here and show you my Mongolian giant sunflower is beginning to open. And this thing is so big. It's crazy how big these things get. I am 5'4", so you can kind of get an estimate of how tall and majestic this Mongolian giant sunflower actually is. So as you saw, I spent several hours out here this morning into early afternoon installing the drip line. Now, this drip tape, you can put this above the mulch or under the mulch. And I have done it both ways. When it's above the mulch, of course it is black, it is going to get a little bit hot, but as soon as that cold water comes in, it cools down very quickly. You don't have to worry about hot water, going into your plants or anything like that, because when the water turns off, they drain out, so there's no water in there. Of course, if you put it under the mulch, it's right down touching the soil, so that is a positive. However, I kind of think I like it on top better, because if you spring a leak, if something happens, you have some sort of damage or something like that, you can very easily see exactly where it is. And so if you ever have to do some sort of repair, it's easy to find it. All of the lines got put in, and again, I did three rows per bed. This is the zucchini bed. Looking pretty sad. You know, I had planted a whole bunch of corn in here, and the corn just did not get enough light. And so you can see there, it just looks like a bunch of big old weeds. So I think I'm just gonna pull all of that corn out. It's not doing anything. And you know, its purpose was to pull out grazon out of the soil. But like I mentioned, I don't think this soil bed or that this garden bed was affected anyways. If it was, I would not have had all of that squash that I got this year. This plant is still producing. I've got more squash or more zucchinis coming up in there. I don't know if you can see it. There's another big old one down in there. And this one over on this end is still pushing out lots of blossoms, still producing. It is getting hit with the flea beetles though all of a sudden. Look at those little monsters. So not cool. You know, even though I don't have anything in it, when I watered the garden this morning, I did go ahead and water this one because it does have that Shasta daisy, which it's kind of reached the end of its season, but it'll come back next year. But I want this soil to stay alive. I don't want the soil to just get super, super dry to where there's no life in it. And so even though there's nothing really going on here, when I water the garden, I water this too because, you know, garden soil is an ecosystem. And so I am going to be planting in here in the next few weeks. And so I want to make sure this soil is lively and healthy and ready to grow things in. All right, friends, so that is it. I'm getting ready to call it a day. It was a long morning out here working, and it was very hot. The heat index was way over 100 degrees, but I was determined to get it done. Got a little bit of sun today, but that's okay. Now, I'm sure some people will be asking about the strip line stuff. I got, like I mentioned earlier in this video, I originally ordered a kit for doing the garden, and then I just added more drip line, more of all the things as I went. But all of this came from a website called Growers Solution. It is where I also get my ground cover fabric that I used in Alabama. And I'm actually contemplating laying down ground cover fabric in here for weed control in the walkways. So I don't know if I'm going to do that, but I'm kind of thinking that just might make my life easier. So I'm contemplating it. I mean, I've got it up there in my greenhouse up there, and it's not really doing anything. So I don't know, I may do that, but either way, if I don't do that, then I'm definitely going to need to bring in some more of the wood chips from my mountain of wood chips that I have over there by our horse trailer. But it'll be a lot more work to bring it in because I can't bring the tractor in here to dump it. So it'll mean lots of loads with a wheelbarrow or a cart, and it is too hot for that. And so if I do that, then it'll have to wait till the fall. So I keep finding more and more of these garden spiders. Like I said before, these are a friend in the garden. And then something else that I noticed the other day were these. This is actually why I planted fennel in my garden, because it brings in the butterflies. And so I'm fine with sacrificing fennel or dill, or I think parsley is what they also like. I'm fine sacrificing those to bring in the pollinators. And there's a couple of them in here. See, there's another one right there. Two more of them right there. So that's always good to see. And you know, if you spray your garden full of pesticides because you're afraid of a bug here and there, you're not going to have these, because you're going to lose these too. Thanks for joining me here at the homestead. I will talk to y'all next time.